I'm Ethan Mitchell, 30 years old, and the CEO of a tech company worth billions. Success feels good, but it doesn't erase the words that changed my life. You were a mistake. We only wanted one child. My father said this when I desperately needed help with college tuition. 10 years later, a single phone call led to my brother getting fired. Now my estranged family wants to reconnect after discovering my success. The irony is almost poetic. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever turned rejection into motivation. Trust me, this journey from family outcast to CEO is something you won't want to miss. Growing up in suburban Boston, our colonial-style house with its manicured lawn projected the perfect image of upper-middle-class success. The Mitchell family was respected in the community. Father Richard, a corporate executive. Mother Barbara, active in local charities. My older brother Alexander, or Alex, as everyone called him, and me, the afterthought. From my earliest memories, the difference in how we were treated was subtle but unmistakable. Alex's birthday parties were elaborate affairs with dozens of kids, custom cakes, and expensive presents. Mine were often simple gatherings with a store-bought cake if remembered at all. Christmas mornings showed the same pattern. Alex's pile of presents towering over my modest few. Alex needs the best baseball equipment if he's going to make varsity, my father would explain. When my brother received a $300 glove while I got clearance sale sneakers, he has real potential. My mother never contradicted these decisions. She'd sometimes give me an extra hug or slip me a few dollars for ice cream, but she never challenged the family hierarchy. Her way of showing love was making sure I had clean clothes and decent meals, but emotional support came with conditions attached. Father ruled our household like he ran his financial consulting firm, with rigid expectations and consequences for failure. His 6'2" frame seemed even larger when he was angry, his voice dropping to that terrifying quiet tone that meant someone had disappointed him. Usually me. Alex thrived under the pressure. He was athletic, conventionally handsome, and socially confident. Everything my father valued. Baseball trophies lined his shelves, and team photos featuring Alex front and center covered our hallway walls. My father attended every game, cheering loudly and proudly, introducing Alex to his business associates. Meanwhile, I developed an early aptitude for mathematics and computers. I could solve complex equations before 4th grade and taught myself basic programming by age 10. These achievements earned brief nods from my parents, but never the enthusiastic pride Alex received for hitting a home run. Computers are for kids who can't make the team, my father commented once when I showed him a program I'd written. The dismissal stung worse than an outright criticism would have. Only my grandmother Martha, my mother's mother, seemed to see me clearly. During her monthly visits, she would bring books about famous inventors and scientists. "Your mind is a gift, Ethan," she'd whisper when we were alone. "Someday the world will see what I see in you." Her small acts of recognition kept me from completely disappearing into myself. I found refuge in technology. My room became my sanctuary, filled with salvaged computer parts and engineering books. While Alex and my father bonded over sports, I taught myself coding languages and hardware repair. The logical rules of programming made sense in a way family dynamics never did. Input A always yielded result. B, no unexplained rejections or shifting standards. By 12, I knew I was fundamentally different from my family, not just in interests, but in how I processed the world. I recognized patterns they missed and solved problems with approaches they couldn't understand. This difference might have been celebrated in another family. In mine, it marked me as an outsider. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" became the refrain of my childhood, sometimes spoken aloud more often, implied through sighs and disappointed glances. I learned to live with this emotional absence, filling the void with intellectual curiosity. While Alex collected friends and accolades, I accumulated knowledge. I began to understand that I would need to create my own path, since no one was going to clear the way for me. This realization was both terrifying and liberating. I could see the injustice of my situation, while still being powerless to change it. The summer before high school, I overheard a conversation between my parents. that confirmed what I had always suspected. Ethan is just so different, my mother said. Sometimes I wonder if he'll ever fit in. We gave him everything Alex had, my father replied. It's not our fault he chooses to be difficult. I silently retreated to my room, the words echoing. They had never seen me clearly, and perhaps they never would. That night, I made my first conscious decision to succeed, not for their approval, but despite their indifference. High school brought new opportunities and challenges. I entered Westfield High with modest hopes that academic achievements might finally earn me the recognition I craved at home. The freshman orientation showcased various clubs and teams, and while Alex had immediately gravitated toward varsity sports as a freshman 3 years earlier, I found myself drawn to the computer club booth. Mr. Jacobson, the computer science teacher, recognized my aptitude immediately. "You've got a real talent, Ethan," he said after I debugged the school network during my first club meeting. "You think differently than most students I've taught." For the first time, my technical skills were seen as valuable rather than weird. In the computer lab, surrounded by like-minded peers, I wasn't an oddity, but a resource. My confidence grew in this small, specialized ecosystem, even as it remained fragile at home. Alex was now a senior captain of the baseball team, and recently accepted to Stanford on a partial sports scholarship. My parents threw him a lavish party, inviting what seemed like half the town to celebrate. "My son, the Stanford man," my father announced, repeatedly clapping Alex on the shoulder with visible pride. "Athletic scholarship and business school bound." I helped mother serve refreshments invisible to the guests who came to congratulate the family star. I calculated that my father had said my son 27 times that evening, always and only referring to Alex. My sophomore year coincided with Alex leaving for college, but his absence didn't shift family dynamics as I'd hoped. Instead, my parents' lives now revolved around weekend trips to watch his games and lengthy phone calls discussing his social life and academic challenges. Meanwhile, I excelled academically without acknowledgement. Perfect math scores, advanced placement in all sciences, and teacher commendations generated only passing interest. "That's nice," Ethan, mother would say before returning to planning care packages for Alex. The pivotal moment came during junior year when I entered the state science fair with a program I'd developed to optimize traffic flow through busy intersections. After months of work testing and refinement, my project won first place. The judges, including professors from MIT, called it graduate-level work with real-world applications. Neither of my parents attended the fair despite my nervous request weeks in advance. They had tickets to one of Alex's important games that weekend. When I returned home with the gold medal and a $5,000 scholarship check, mother gave a distracted congratulations while packing for their trip. "Your father and I are proud of you," she said unconvincingly, "but we really need to finish packing." Mr. Jacobson became my mentor during this period, offering guidance both technical and personal. After witnessing my parents' absence at the science fair, he took me aside. "Ethan, I've seen many gifted students over the years," he said carefully. "But talent isn't enough. You need to believe in yourself even when others don't. Especially when others don't." His words were a revelation. The problem wasn't me failing to earn love. It was them failing to give it freely. This understanding didn't heal the wound, but it helped me stop picking at it constantly. Around this time, I started a small business, repairing computers for neighbors and local businesses. Word spread quickly about the teenage tech expert who could fix problems the big repair shops couldn't diagnose. I opened my first bank account with the earnings, watching the balance grow with satisfaction. I met Lucas Johnson in AP Computer Science. Unlike other friends who drifted away, when they sensed my family's dysfunction, Lucas stayed. Visiting his home exposed me to what a supportive family looked like. Parents who asked questions and actually listened to the answers, who displayed Lucas's achievements proudly, alongside those of his siblings. "Why don't your folks ever come to the academic competitions?" Lucas asked once after they'd attended our robotics tournament. I shrugged, the truth too complicated and painful to articulate. "They're busy with work stuff." The other transformative relationship was with Diana Chen, my first serious girlfriend. Smart, confident, and perceptive, she saw through my carefully constructed self-sufficiency. "You act like you don't need anyone," she observed after dating for 3 months. "But everyone needs someone, Ethan." Slowly, Diana and Lucas helped me understand that the problem wasn't my worthiness but my parents' inability to see it. This perspective was both liberating and devastating. If the issue wasn't something I could fix through achievement, then perhaps it would never be resolved. Senior year arrived with college applications. My SAT scores were nearly perfect, my GPA impeccable, and my extracurricular activities substantial if not flashy. Mr. Jacobson helped me craft applications to top computer science programs. You could get into any of these schools, he assured me. You've got the kind of mind these programs are looking for. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future defined by my abilities rather than my family's perception of them. I pictured college dorms where no one knew me as Alex's brother, and classrooms where my intelligence was the primary currency. As acceptance letters arrived, I kept them to myself, uncertain how to navigate this success in a household where my achievements rarely registered. The letter from MIT, my top choice, I kept hidden until I could no longer delay the discussion about finances. The fuse was lit for the explosion that would permanently alter the trajectory of my life. The MIT acceptance package arrived on a Tuesday in April. I opened it alone in my room, hands trembling as I read the congratulatory letter. Computer science at MIT. The program that had produced some of the greatest technological innovators of the century. For a moment, pure joy overwhelmed the caution that normally tempered my emotions. The financial aid package was generous but not complete. Even with the science fair scholarship and my savings, I would need approximately $12,000 for the first year's expenses. The parent contribution form sat heavily in my hands, a hurdle between me and escape. For 3 days I rehearsed the conversation, mentally calculating the best approach. My parents could afford it. They had paid considerably more for Alex's education, despite his partial scholarship. Friday evening I found them in the living room reviewing Alex's summer internship options. I got accepted to MIT, I said, standing awkwardly by the doorway, acceptance letter and financial forms in hand. For computer science. MIT. Mother looked up, genuine surprise in her expression. That's a very good school, isn't it? Father glanced over briefly. Computer programming, right? Is there good money in that? The dismissive tone was familiar, but I pressed on. The starting salary for graduates is around $80,000. I got a partial scholarship, but I need to discuss the remaining costs. I explained the financial aid package, the scholarships I'd secured, and my personal savings contribution. The remaining $12,000 per year was the obstacle. That's a lot of money for a hobby, Ethan, father said, turning back to Alex's internship paperwork. It's not a hobby. It's one of the best computer science programs in the country, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. I've been accepted to their accelerated master's program track. They only take 12 students a year. Mother looked uncomfortable. We're already stretched with Alex's expenses. Stanford is very costly, even with his scholarship. You paid nearly $30,000 a year for Alex, I said quietly. I'm asking for 12. Father set down his papers, his expression hardening. Your brother is pursuing a practical business degree that will set him up for life. We know that investment will pay off. Computer science is practical, I insisted. Technology is the future of business. Listen, father, said his patience visibly thinning. We made certain choices about family priorities. Alex was always going to college. He was planned. He was on a path. And I wasn't on a path. The question emerged sharper than I intended. Father stood up, towering over me, as he had throughout my childhood. You want the truth. You were a mistake. We only wanted one child. Your mother's birth control failed. We did our duty and raised you, but we're not obligated to fund every whim you have. The words landed like physical blows. Mother gasped softly but didn't contradict him. Her silence was confirmation. Richard, please, she finally said, but there was no real protest in her tone. He needs to hear it, Father continued. We've got one son at Stanford. That's the investment we chose to make. Ethan can go to community college if he wants an education so badly. The room seemed to tilt sideways. All the years of differential treatment, of feeling like an outsider, compressed into perfect clarity. I wasn't merely less favored. I was unwanted from conception. I see I managed to say surprising myself with how calm I sounded while internally shattering. Thank you for your honesty. I walked upstairs to my bedroom, closed the door quietly, and sat on the edge of my bed. No tears came. Instead, a cold numbness spread through me, along with the certainty that I would never truly belong in this house. I called Diana first. My father just told me I was a mistake, I said when she answered. That they only wanted one child. They won't help with MIT. Her sharp intake of breath carried through the phone. Ethan, that's horrible. Are you okay? No, I admitted. I don't think I am. Diana came over immediately, followed by Lucas after I texted him. They found me methodically sorting through my possessions, separating what was essential from what could be left behind. What are you doing? Lucas asked, alarmed. I can't stay here, I explained. The decision had crystallized the moment Father's words registered. I need to leave. Diana sat beside me on the bed. Where will you go? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I know I can't spend another night in this house. They helped me think through options. Diana's parents had a finished basement they sometimes rented out. It was currently vacant. They adore you, she assured me. They'd let you stay while you figure things out. Lucas contributed practical advice about financial aid appeals and emancipation paperwork. If you're declared independent, you might qualify for more assistance. By midnight, a plan had formed. I would take what I could carry: clothes, my computer equipment, important documents, and the money I'd saved. Diana's parents had agreed to a temporary arrangement once she explained the situation. As Lucas and Diana waited in Lucas's car, I took a final walk through the house that had never truly been home. My parents' bedroom door was closed. They hadn't checked on me once since the confrontation. Whether from guilt or indifference, the result was the same: confirmation that leaving was necessary. I wrote a brief note: I understand now where I stand in this family. I won't burden you with my presence or my future. Thank you for the clarity. Ethan. The night air felt different as I walked away from the house, heavier with possibility rather than constraint. In Lucas's car, Diana held my hand tightly. You're going to be okay, she said with a conviction I couldn't yet feel. Better than okay, Lucas added. You're going to be extraordinary. As we drove away, I didn't look back at the darkened windows of my childhood home. Whatever light might guide my future, it wouldn't come from there. Diana's parents welcomed me with a compassion that made my throat tight with unfamiliar emotion. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves converted their basement into a simple but comfortable living space, refusing payment beyond minimal utilities contribution. Everyone deserves a safe place to land, Mrs. Reeves said, showing me the freshly made futon bed and small desk they'd arranged. Take the time you need to get on your feet. The contrast between their kindness and my parents' rejection was disorienting. I kept waiting for conditions or criticism that never materialized. Reality set in quickly. MIT was financially impossible without parental support or massive loans. After several sleepless nights weighing options, I made the practical choice to defer my acceptance and enroll in community college classes while working to build savings. Within a week, I secured 3 jobs: morning shifts at a local cafe, afternoon work at an electronics store, and weekend computer repair services I advertised through community bulletin boards. My schedule became a relentless cycle of work and study with barely enough time for basic necessities like eating and showering. Community college courses in computer science felt remedial after the advanced work I'd done in high school, but I forced myself to focus on the credentials rather than the content. Each completed credit represented progress toward independence. The electronics store job proved unexpectedly valuable beyond the minimum wage it paid. During slow periods, I could study behind the counter, and more importantly, it's where I met Marcus Wilson. Marcus was 24, a college dropout with brilliant ideas and no framework to implement them. He recognized my technical abilities immediately and began sharing concepts for apps and software solutions he'd been developing conceptually. The problem with current inventory management systems, he explained during one slow afternoon, is they're designed by accountants, not by the people actually handling the products. His insight into user experience complemented my coding abilities. We began meeting at a 24-hour diner after our shift, sketching ideas on napkins and debating implementation strategies. We could actually build this, I realized after one particularly productive session. I can code the back end while you design the interface. Marcus's eyes lit up. Are you serious? You think we could make something marketable? Thus began our partnership, squeezing development time between work shifts and classes. When my lease agreement with the Reeves family approached 6 months, I moved into Marcus's apartment to save money, sleeping on an air mattress in the living room. Our living situation was Spartan. The apartment was a studio barely big enough for one person, let alone two. We subsisted primarily on ramen noodles, canned tuna, and whatever leftover pastries I could bring home from the cafe. Every spare dollar went toward computer equipment and software licenses. Diana visited when she could, though. Her acceptance to Berkeley created geographical challenges. Our relationship shifted under the strain of distance and my consuming work schedule. But her belief in me never wavered. You're the most determined person I've ever known, she said during one of our video calls. When you succeed, and you will succeed, it won't be luck or privilege. It will be because you earned it. Those words sustained me through the period I call the 18-hour days. For nearly 8 months, I worked my regular jobs, attended classes, and coded our prototype from approximately 5 a.m. until 1 a.m. the following morning. Physical exhaustion became my constant companion, manifesting in frequent illnesses and a concerning weight loss. Marcus intervened when he found me passed out at my keyboard one morning. You're killing yourself, he said bluntly. We need a better system. We restructured our approach. I reduced my cafe hours and focused on higher-paying computer repair clients. Marcus took on additional graphic design freelance work. Together, we developed a sustainable schedule that allowed for minimal but necessary rest. The prototype for our inventory management software progressed slowly but steadily. We named it FlowStock, a system that tracked inventory with unprecedented accuracy while remaining intuitive for warehouse workers to use. Our first real breakthrough came 14 months after I'd left my parents' home. A small manufacturing company agreed to test our software in their warehouse. The owner, impressed by our presentation despite our youth, offered $5,000 for a 3-month trial. If it performs as advertised, he said, we'll discuss a permanent implementation and referrals. That first check allowed me to quit the cafe job and focus entirely on development. We moved to a slightly larger apartment where I finally had a separate sleeping area, though it was just a converted closet with a twin mattress on the floor. Through all this struggle, I maintained zero contact with my family. Sometimes I would look up Alex's accomplishments online, his graduation from Stanford, his immediate hire at father's firm, his engagement to the daughter of another executive. These glimpses into his continuing golden child status no longer hurt as they once had. I was building something of my own, something that didn't require their approval or support. Diana and I tried to maintain our relationship, but the combination of distance, my work schedule, and our increasingly divergent life experiences created an unbridgeable gap. Our eventual breakup was amicable, but necessary. I'll always believe in you, she said during our final call, but we're becoming different people. Her ongoing friendship provided comfort even as the romantic relationship ended. She remained one of the few connections to my past that I willingly maintained. The manufacturing company not only purchased FlowStock after the trial period, but recommended us to several business associates. By the 2-year mark after leaving home, Marcus and I had 6 clients and enough income to rent a small office space. We incorporated officially as FlowTech Solutions, with Marcus handling sales and client relations while I managed development and technical implementation. Our complementary skills created a balanced partnership that attracted attention in the local business community. A regional business magazine featured us in a small profile piece highlighting the innovative aspects of our software. The article described me as a coding wonderkind and Marcus as a user experience visionary. We framed it and hung it in our modest office, tangible proof that we were building something meaningful. That night, sitting on the roof of our apartment building with cheap beer to celebrate, Marcus asked the question I'd managed to avoid explaining fully. You never talk about your family. They ever reach out to see how you're doing? I took a long drink before answering. They made it clear I wasn't a priority. I'm returning the favor. Marcus nodded, understanding the finality in my tone. Their loss, man. Seriously. As Flowtech grew, I occasionally searched online for information about my father's financial consulting firm. Richard Mitchell and Associates was expanding, opening new offices in Chicago and Philadelphia. Articles mentioned Alex's rising position within the company, describing him as the heir apparent to the Mitchell financial consultancy empire. These facts registered as data points, rather than emotional triggers. I was creating my own path, one independent of the Mitchell name and legacy. The desperate desire for approval that had defined my childhood was gradually being replaced by professional confidence and personal resilience. By the third year, we had 15 employees and had moved to a legitimate office space in a business district. I finally purchased a real bed and basic furniture for a one-bedroom apartment of my own. These modest achievements represented monumental progress from the air mattress days. I celebrated my 23rd birthday by opening a retirement account and health insurance policy. Adult milestones that symbolized stability emerging from chaos. No cards arrived from my parents, but I received warm wishes from Diana, Lucas, Marcus, our employees, and the Reeves family, who had remained supportive despite their daughter and I no longer being together. This chosen family sustained me through the continuing challenges of building a business from nothing. Their genuine interest in my well-being provided the emotional foundation that allowed me to take calculated business risks and weather inevitable setbacks. During these struggle years, I learned that family is defined by actions rather than blood. By who shows up, who listens, who believes in you when evidence of success is still theoretical. This lesson, painful as it was to acquire, would prove invaluable in the years ahead. Our breakthrough moment arrived unexpectedly during a regional tech conference where Flowtech had a small booth sandwiched between industry giants. Marcus had convinced me to invest in professional signage and demo stations despite my concern about the expense. Perception matters, he insisted. We need to look established even if we're still hustling. His instinct proved correct when James Harrington, CTO of Retail Corp., one of the largest retail chains in the country, stopped by our booth. He watched our demo with increasing interest, asking technical questions that demonstrated genuine understanding of the problems we were solving. I've seen 24 inventory systems this weekend, he said finally. Yours is the only one built with actual warehouse operations in mind, rather than just accounting oversight. 2 weeks later, we were presenting to Retail Corp's executive team. The contract they offered would multiply our annual revenue by 5 and require us to scale rapidly. The moment they left our office, Marcus and I stared at each other in stunned silence before erupting into celebration. This changes everything, Marcus said, his voice hoarse from shouting. We're not just surviving anymore. We're going to thrive. The Retail Corp contract necessitated expansion. We hired developers, sales staff, and customer support representatives. Our 15-person team grew to 40 within 6 months. We moved to larger offices, invested in proper infrastructure, and developed standardized onboarding processes. My role evolved from hands-on developer to technical director, overseeing a team of programmers implementing my architectural vision. The transition challenged my introverted nature, forcing me to develop leadership skills I hadn't known I possessed. You're good with people, Marcus observed after watching me mentor a junior developer. Better than you think you are. I just remember what it felt like to be dismissed, I replied. Technical problems are solvable when you have the right guidance. Our growth attracted attention from tech industry publications. Silicon Valley Reporter featured Flowtech in a cover story about emerging supply chain technology companies. The article included my photograph and a brief biography that mentioned my MIT acceptance and subsequent path through entrepreneurship. I kept a copy of the magazine but didn't share it on social media or send it to anyone from my past. The validation was personal, not a message intended for absent family members. With financial stability came the opportunity to address long-ignored aspects of personal well-being. At Marcus's suggestion, I began seeing a therapist to process the family trauma I'd compartmentalized during the survival years. Dr. Levine helped me understand that my drive for success was partially rooted in proving my worth to people who had failed me. The question, she said during one session, is whether you're building the life you want or the life that would impress them. This insight prompted deep reflection about my motivations and values. I realized that while proving my father wrong had fueled my initial determination, genuine passion for technology, and creating systems that worked harmoniously had become my true driving force. 5 years after walking away from my parents' house, Flowtech secured Series A funding at a $25 million valuation. The investment allowed us to develop new products beyond our initial inventory management system, expanding into full supply chain optimization. I purchased my first home, a modern apartment in a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor. The space reflected my evolved aesthetic: clean lines, functional design, and carefully selected quality over quantity. Every element was intentionally chosen rather than inherited or imposed. While I never actively followed my family's lives, information occasionally reached me through business news. Richard Mitchell and Associates had expanded into international markets, with Alex leading the new divisions. Father's reputation as a shrewd financial strategist had grown, and their firm now advised several Fortune 500 companies. One evening, while researching potential clients, I discovered that Retail Corp had previously consulted with my father's firm on financial restructuring. The business world was smaller than I had realized, with unexpected connections creating invisible threads between my new life and my abandoned past. Marcus had become much more than a business partner during these years of growth. His unwavering belief in our vision, even during the darkest struggle periods, had created a brotherhood stronger than the biological one I'd left behind. We complemented each other perfectly, his extroverted energy and creative vision balancing my technical precision and strategic thinking. By our 6th year, Flowtech had grown to over 500 employees, with offices in 3 cities. Our client roster included major retail chains, manufacturing companies, and distribution centers. Industry analysts began describing our software as the new standard in supply chain management. The company's success afforded me privacy and independence I'd never known. I designed my life carefully, allocating time for work, continued education, physical health, and the small circle of genuine relationships I now valued. The emotional chaos of my childhood had been replaced by structured calm of my own making. Personal recognition came in the form of a Forbes 30 Under 30 listing in the enterprise technology category. The brief profile mentioned my unconventional path from community college to founding a company valued at over $100 million. The accompanying photo showed me in simple dark clothing against the backdrop of our headquarters, a visual representation of how far I'd come from the invisible second sun. While I didn't seek publicity, these accolades served as milestones marking progress on a journey that had begun with rejection. Each recognition reinforced that my father's dismissal reflected his limitations, not mine. I created company culture that specifically countered the dynamics of my childhood home. At Flowtech, achievements were celebrated regardless of who accomplished them. Junior developers received the same recognition for innovations as senior staff. Ideas were evaluated on merit rather than source. "Everyone gets a voice here" became our unofficial motto, words I wished someone had said to me during those silent family dinners where only Alex's accomplishments warranted discussion. The broken relationship with my family remained a private matter. Even as my professional profile rose, I compartmentalized that aspect of my history. When new acquaintances asked about family, I developed concise responses that acknowledged estrangement without inviting further questions. "We're not in contact," I would say simply. "I'm fortunate to have built meaningful connections elsewhere." This period of ascending success brought vindication, but not in the form I might have imagined during those first painful nights away from home. The true vindication wasn't in proving my worth to those who had rejected me, but in discovering that their rejection had never actually defined my worth at all. 7 years into building Flowtech, we had become a recognized leader in supply chain technology. Our flagship products had expanded to include predictive analytics for inventory management, blockchain-verified supply chain tracking, and proprietary security systems for business data. The annual National Business Technology Conference marked a turning point I couldn't have anticipated. As a featured speaker discussing security innovations, I found myself seated at a VIP dinner next to Lawrence Coleman, CEO of Coleman Financial Group, one of my father's primary competitors. Mitchell Coleman said, studying my name badge. Any relation to Richard Mitchell? I hesitated before answering truthfully. He's my father, but we haven't spoken in many years. Coleman nodded without pressing further. Interesting. Small world in finance and tech these days. Our conversation shifted to business matters, specifically the increasing cybersecurity threats facing financial institutions. Coleman mentioned that his firm was evaluating security vendors following recent vulnerability assessments. Most financial services companies are running outdated security protocols, I explained. They prioritize compliance over actual protection. That's exactly the issue our consultants identified, Coleman agreed. We're looking at a complete security infrastructure overhaul. Without mentioning my father's company specifically, I outlined the approach we developed for financial services clients. A comprehensive security framework that integrated with legacy systems while providing modern protection. I'd like your team to submit a proposal, Coleman said as dinner concluded. This sounds like exactly what we need. 2 weeks later, our security division presented to Coleman's executive team. The contract they subsequently signed became our largest to date, establishing Flowtech as a serious player in financial technology security. What I didn't know then was that Coleman Financial Group had been conducting a competitive analysis of several financial consultancy firms, including my father's. Our security implementation gave them unprecedented insight into industry best practices and consequently into the vulnerabilities of competitors using outdated systems. 4 months after implementing our security platform, Coleman's cybersecurity team discovered an unusual pattern within a competitor's client management system. This discovery eventually led to an industry-wide investigation into financial reporting practices. I learned about the unfolding situation through business news alerts. The headline, "Mitchell and Associates Under Investigation, Executive Suspended," appeared on my phone during a product development meeting. The article detailed allegations that Alex Mitchell, executive vice president and son of founder Richard Mitchell, had manipulated client financial reports to inflate performance metrics, potentially constituting fraud. The investigation had begun after security audits by a competing firm revealed inconsistencies in reported returns. My immediate reaction surprised me. Not satisfaction, but a complex mixture of shock and detachment. I had never wished for Alex's downfall. I had simply wanted to build something meaningful, despite being told I couldn't. As the investigation progressed, more details emerged. Alex had apparently been altering performance reports for several major clients, showing returns that exceeded actual results. The practice had allegedly begun 3 years earlier when market downturns threatened the firm's performance bonuses. The business media thoroughly covered the scandal, though none made the connection to me. Flowtech's role in providing the security system that enabled the discovery remained confidential, known only to Coleman's internal team and our implementation specialists. Marcus noticed my distraction during this period. "You okay?" he asked, after I missed several points during an executive meeting. "You seem somewhere else lately." I showed him the news article about the investigation. "That's my brother." His eyes widened. "Seriously? The guy being investigated for fraud is your brother? The golden child who got everything?" "Ironic, isn't it?" I replied. "Our security system indirectly exposed his misconduct." "Are you going to reach out?" Marcus asked. I shook my head. "That chapter of my life is closed. This doesn't change anything." But despite my assurances, the situation did affect me. Watching from a distance as the family that had dismissed me faced public scrutiny stirred complicated emotions. Not satisfaction or vindication. Those had come from building something meaningful, not from witnessing others' failures. Instead, I felt a strange emptiness, as if the final connection to my past had been severed. The investigation concluded with Alex's termination and a substantial fine for Mitchell and Associates. Criminal charges against Alex were considered, but ultimately not pursued, in exchange for full cooperation with regulatory authorities. The firm's stock price plummeted, and several major clients transferred their accounts to competitors, including Coleman Financial Group. Business publications ran profiles examining the fall of the Mitchell financial empire and questioning whether the firm could recover from the reputational damage. One article included a family photo from a charity event years earlier, mother, father, and Alex smiling for the camera. I had not been present for that event, having already left home. Looking at their faces now strained by scandal rather than beaming with success, I felt nothing close to happiness. Their suffering brought me no joy. The revenge unintended, as it was, felt hollow rather than satisfying. Instead, I recommitted to building Flowtech with integrity as its foundation. We implemented ethics training for all employees and established clear reporting channels for any concerns about client implementations or internal practices. We succeed by creating genuine value, I told our executive team, not by manipulating perceptions or cutting corners. This philosophy guided our continued expansion. By my 28th birthday, Flowtech had grown to over 700 employees globally, with a valuation approaching $1 billion. I had become wealthy beyond what my teenage self could have imagined while sleeping on Marcus's floor. My personal life had settled into comfortable patterns. I maintained close friendships with Marcus, Lucas, and Diana, though we now lived in different cities. I dated occasionally, but prioritized the company's growth over serious relationships. The emotional safety I had created through independence remained valuable to me. The penthouse I purchased offered panoramic city views and a minimalist aesthetic that contrasted sharply with the cluttered traditional decor of my childhood home. Every element reflected intentional choice rather than inherited obligation. When Forbes featured me in their Under 40 issue with the title Tech's Quiet Revolutionary, the profile focused entirely on Flowtech's innovations without mentioning my family background. The omission was deliberate on my part. I had built this life without their support or influence, and the narrative belonged to me alone. The irony wasn't lost on me that as my brother's reputation collapsed, mine ascended. But the parallel trajectories weren't causally connected in my mind. His failure hadn't created my success. They were separate stories that happened to intersect through an unlikely chain of business relationships. What my family had never understood was that achievement doesn't occur in a zero-sum environment where one person's success requires another's failure. Alex's advantages hadn't caused my struggles. Their perception that his path was the only valid one had. As news of my father's company's struggles faded from business headlines, I continued focusing on Flowtech's future. We were developing new artificial intelligence applications for supply chain management that promised to revolutionize the industry again. The company had become my legacy, proof that value can emerge from rejection when coupled with persistence and vision. Whatever vindication I might have felt was directed not at my family but at the limiting beliefs I had internalized during those years of invisibility. I had no way of knowing then that the separate worlds I had so carefully maintained were about to collide. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon as I reviewed quarterly projections with our finance team. My assistant interrupted with an unusual message. "There's a Barbara Mitchell on line 1. She says she's your mother." 10 years had passed since I walked out of my parents' home. 10 years of building a life without their acknowledgement or support. The unexpected contact disoriented me momentarily. "I'll take it in my office," I said, excusing myself from the meeting. For several seconds after closing my door, I simply stared at the blinking light on my phone. What could possibly warrant breaking a decade of silence? Taking a deep breath, I picked up the receiver. "This is Ethan." "Ethan." My mother's voice sounded older, tentative. "I wasn't sure you'd take my call." "I'm equally surprised you made it," I replied neutrally. "What can I do for you?" She hesitated before continuing. "We've been following your success, the company you built. It's remarkable." The observation hung awkwardly between us. No congratulations, no acknowledgement of the years of silence, just a statement of fact. "Thank you," I said simply, "but I doubt you called to discuss Flowtech's market position." Another pause. "Things have been difficult since Alex's situation. Your father's company lost several major clients. We've had to downsize considerably." The implicit request became clear. They were facing financial difficulties and had suddenly remembered their second son now, a successful CEO. I'm sorry to hear that I said the politeness automatic rather than genuine. Business cycles can be unpredictable. We'd like to see you, she continued. Your father and I. We've been doing a lot of thinking about the past. About mistakes we made. The word mistakes echoed painfully, recalling Father's devastating declaration years ago. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. Could we meet for dinner just to talk? As a family. The request triggered a complex cascade of emotions. The lingering hurt of rejection, vestigial desire for parental approval, and the hard-earned peace I'd found in their absence. I'll consider it, I said finally. I need some time. After ending the call, I sat motionless, processing the unexpected connection to my past. Marcus found me there 20 minutes later. Meeting ran long, he explained, then noticed my expression. What happened? I summarized the conversation briefly. They're having financial problems. Suddenly, they want a relationship. Marcus's expression darkened. Convenient timing. Very, I agreed. Over the next week, I discussed the situation with my therapist, Dr. Levine, who had helped me process much of my family trauma over the years. What do you hope to gain from seeing them? She asked. And what do you fear might happen? The questions forced me to examine my motivations honestly. Did I want closure, validation? Or was there still that wounded child within me hoping for the recognition I'd been denied? I think I need to see them from my current position of strength, I finally decided. Not for revenge or reconciliation, but to close the circle. I arranged to meet my parents at a neutral location, an upscale restaurant downtown where the public setting would encourage civility. Marcus offered to wait nearby in case the meeting proved overwhelming. Just text me if you need an emergency exit strategy, he said. I'll call with a sudden company crisis. The evening arrived with a strange sense of unreality. I arrived early, securing a corner table, with good sightlines to the entrance. At precisely 7, they appeared. Older versions of the people who had defined my childhood. Father's imposing frame had diminished somewhat, his shoulders slightly stooped. Mother looked brittle, her carefully maintained appearance showing signs of strain. They spotted me immediately approaching with visible nervousness. Ethan, Mother said, leaning in for an awkward hug. I neither returned nor rebuffed. You look wonderful. Father extended his hand formally. Son. The term he had reserved exclusively for Alex in the past sounded foreign coming from his lips. I shook his hand briefly before gesturing for them to sit. The initial conversation remained superficial. Comments about the restaurant, the weather, traffic. Finally, Mother broached the subject of my career. We read about your company in the Wall Street Journal, she said. $1 billion valuation is extraordinary. The technology sector moves quickly, I replied neutrally. We've been fortunate. Father cleared his throat. I always knew you were smart with those computers. Ahead of your time, really. The revisionist history was jarring. I took a sip of water before responding. That's not how I remember your assessment of my interests. An uncomfortable silence followed until Mother attempted to redirect. We've had our struggles since everything with Alex happened. I read about the investigation, I acknowledged. That must have been difficult. He made mistakes, Father said tersely. Got caught up in trying to meet expectations. The pressure was intense. The irony of his defending Alex's criminal behavior while having dismissed my legitimate aspirations wasn't lost on me. How is he? I asked, more out of politeness than genuine concern. Working for a small regional firm in Connecticut, Mother replied. Starting over. His wife left after the scandal. The conversation continued with increasing transparency about their situation. Father's company had lost 70% of its value. They had sold their vacation home and downsized their primary residence. Their social standing in the community had diminished considerably. We've been doing a lot of reflecting, Mother said, reaching tentatively for my hand across the table. I left mine where it was. About the past. About how we treated you. We may have been tough on you, Father added. Perhaps too focused on Alex's path. The non-apology confirmed what I had suspected. They hadn't fundamentally changed. They had simply reassessed my value based on current circumstances. Tough, I repeated. Is that how you characterize telling your son he was a mistake and refusing to support his education? Mother flinched. We never thought you'd take it so personally. That's the problem, I replied calmly. You never considered how your words and actions might affect me at all. I wasn't real to you. Father shifted uncomfortably. The past is the past, Ethan. We're trying to build bridges here. Why now? I asked directly. Is it because you've seen my success and reconsidered my worth? Or because you need something from me? The question hung heavily between us. Mother glanced at Father, who seemed suddenly fascinated by his water glass. Family should stick together through difficult times, she finally said. I agree, I replied. That's why I've created a family of choice who supported me when I had nothing, who believed in me when no evidence of future success existed. Father straightened his expression, hardening into the familiar disapproval I remembered from childhood. If you're not interested in reconciliation, why did you agree to meet? Closure, I said simply, and clarity about my path forward. I placed my napkin on the table and continued. I don't hate you. I don't wish you ill. But I don't need you in my life anymore. The time when I desperately needed parents has passed. So that's it, Father demanded. No. Second chances. You're not entitled to a relationship with me, I explained calmly. Especially not one predicated on what I can do for you, rather than who I am. Mother began crying quietly. We've lost both our sons. You chose to have only one son, I reminded her gently. I'm simply honoring that choice. I paid the bill despite their protests and stood to leave. I wish you well in rebuilding your lives. I hope Alex finds his path. But my journey continues separately from yours. Walking out of the restaurant felt like shedding the final weight of expectation I'd carried since childhood. No anger remained, just clarity about boundaries and self-worth that had taken years to develop. The following week, I established the Mitchell Foundation for Educational Access, a scholarship program specifically designed to support students without family financial resources. The irony of using the family name for this purpose wasn't lost on me, but it felt like transforming something painful into something healing. Each year, the foundation would provide full scholarships to 20 students who demonstrated academic potential but lacked family support. The application process specifically considered candidates who were estranged from parents, emancipated minors, or otherwise independently supporting their education. Every student deserves the chance to develop their talents. Read the foundation's mission statement. Financial limitations and family circumstances should never determine intellectual opportunity. The foundation became my response to the rejection I had experienced. Not retribution, but reconstruction, creating support systems that I had lacked. This felt like true closure, more meaningful than any confrontation or reconciliation could have been. In the years since that dinner meeting, I've had no further contact with my parents or brother. Flowtech continues to thrive recently, crossing the $2 billion valuation mark. Marcus and I remain partners and friends, our shared history of struggle creating a bond stronger than many biological connections. The journey from rejected son to successful CEO taught me that family is defined by actions rather than blood. By who shows up consistently, who believes in your potential, who celebrates your victories, and supports you through defeats. The people who fulfill these functions may or may not share your DNA. More importantly, I learned that worth isn't bestowed by parental approval or withdrawn by their rejection. It exists independently of others' perceptions, an internal quality that can be recognized and nurtured, but never truly given or taken away. If you're watching this and feeling unseen or unwanted by those who should support you, know that their limitations don't define your potential. The words "you were a mistake" reflect the speaker's narrowness, not your value. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who only valued you when you had something to offer them? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to help others find this channel. Remember that true family can be those we choose, not just those we're born to. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength in creating your own path forward.